sleep, but
Exactly.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, so just talk amongst yourselves for the time being, and we'll get everybody
Okay.
all situated on this end.
Hey, Jared.
Yeah, he's there.
Kathy with you, or she's someplace else today?
Huh? Kathy should be here momentarily.
Oh, okay, good.
Whoops.
I saw Andrea.
Yes.
Hello, Marty.
Hi.
Hi.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Andrea.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Oh, Jerry. Hi. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Grandfather.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's wonderful to see all of you, to welcome all of our members, to welcome
Hey, Myra.
members of Lauren's family and friendship group, and to be able to celebrate Shabbat really with all of you is at the moment that I'm not using hyperbole is absolutely the highlight of my week. So this is really it's a great opportunity for all of us, I think, to welcome Shabbat and in her now third week with us, Cantor Lauren, who has really just been a wonderful addition to our community. And I think that what we're going to do, and we'll just get started in a second here, is that we'll begin our service first by very politely muting everybody but Lauren. So please don't take any offense. We'll unmute you later on. And okay, and then Lauren, whenever you're ready, and we're going to actually start with our candle blessings, which I have conveniently arranged behind me. So if you want to follow along at home, if you have candles, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, we're on page 120 in our prayer books, either online or in the book. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzifanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. And we'll turn it over now to Cantor, who is going to get us warmed up a little bit. So Cantor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Maya Hayom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Maya Hayom. Shabbat shalom, Maya Hayom. Shabbat shalom.
Okay. Thank you, Cantor, for getting us started. We're going to turn now to page 130 in our prayer books as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, nekad mafana betodah. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu ne'anena, lechu ne'anena, lechu ne'anena l'Adonai. Lechu ne'anena, lechu ne'anena, lechu ne'anena l'Adonai. We turn now to page 131, Shiru l'Adonai. Shiru l'Adonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru l'Adonai, Kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. We're now on page 132, the last paragraph in Hebrew at the bottom of the page. Or zaru ala tzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. 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 We turn now to page 134, the very top of the page, Zamru l'Adonai. Zamru l'Adonai bechinohor, bechinohor v'kol zimra, v'chatzotzrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai. Iram hayam umlo, tevehel veyoshveva, neharot imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiraneinu, lifnei Adonai kivam, lishvot haaretz. Yishpot tevel betzedek, ve'amim b'meisharim. Yiram hayam umlo, tevel ve'yoshveva. Neharot imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiraneinu. As we turn it back over to Lauren, we're now on page 135, Romamu, the last Hebrew paragraph in the middle of the page.
Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'yishachavu lehar kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'yishachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'yishachavu lehar kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'yishachavu lehar kodsho.
We'll turn now to page 138 for Lecha Dodi, beginning at the top of the page, and just a reminder that we're doing the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat mekabelat. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat mekabelat. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'litilam. Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki makor haberacha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof maaseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, Ki va'orech u'mi'ori, Uri, shir daberi, Kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Bohi v'shalom ateret balam, Gam besimcha u'vetzolam, Toch emunei am sekula, Boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kalam, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. We'll turn it back over to the cantor as we turn to page 140, Tzadik Katamar, which is in the Hebrew, just where it indents in the middle of the page.
Tzadik Katamar yivrach, Ke'erez balvanon yeiskeh, Shetulim bevet Adonai, Bechatrot Eloheinu yafrichu, Oryenu betzeva, Deshenim verananim yeyu, Le'agid ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo avlat abo.
We turn now to page 145 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkanal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, Be'alma divrach yotei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayetecho beit Yisrael, Bagala u'vizman kari v'yimeru am יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולמי עלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשו בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירה בעלמה, ויאמרו אמן.
We turn now to page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Baruchu et Adonai
Okay, I'll invite anyone who is still standing to please be seated. We turn now to page 148 and read together in English at the bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uben laila, Adonai Tzebaot shemo, El Chai v'kayam, Tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv haravim, Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amchavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu lemadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochenu u'vekumeinu, nasiach bekuchecha. ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו Adonai Echad.
We're now on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meotecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam ve'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. We read together now on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. And we'll turn it back over to the cantor as we are on page 158, Mi Chamocha. And we turn now to page 160, Hashkivenu.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, leShalom. Keha'amidenu, Shomreinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, leShalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship
turn now to page 162, Vishamru at the top of the page. Vishameru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat l'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam ein beheini uvein bnei Yisrael oti leolam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi Shabbat Shabbat vayinafash. So in a moment, we'll begin the Amidah on page 164 together, and then we'll continue silently as we've been doing for the last few weeks, wherever you feel most comfortable, standing or sitting. And we'll turn it back over to the cantor again, who will help us to begin on page 164, and then we'll continue silently, and please go at your own pace.
Adonai Sabbatai Tiftach Ufi Agit Hilatecha Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. And Oseh shalom bimrama, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, le'ol kol Yisrael, le'imru amin. Oseh shalom bimrama, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, le'ol kol Yisrael, le'imru amin. Oseh shalom bimrama, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, le'ol kol Yisrael, le'imru amin.
Thank you, Cantor. And at this time, we'll think of those in our lives and our community around the world who are struggling and in need of healing. And as we have been doing certainly for the last few months, as we have this prayer and this opportunity to pray for those in need of healing, to also hold a place in our hearts for for those who are doing the work of that healing and supporting the work of that healing as well. So we'll begin by thinking of those in our community and connected to our community on our Mishaberach list. And I'll invite you also, if there are names that we don't share, to please feel free to share any names that you'd like in the chat, or simply to hold the thoughts and prayers for your loved ones in your heart. So in our community, we're thinking of Rona Klotman, Morty Lynn, Phyllis Katz, Raina Walsh, Deirdre Klein, Harav Tuvia Abraham ben Asher Valea, Stephanie Skit, Nancy DeMate, Andrew Lesser, Joanne Sanborn, Jean Ben Sadoun, Gloria Taradash, Andrea Klausner, Judy Stern, Miriam Kornfeld, Roz Brody, Chana Ruth Batsara, Marlise Silverberg, Louis Davidson, Susan Spruce, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva, Elisheva Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Idol Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Nachum Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Ben Sion Ben Moshe, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kassoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klotman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivya, Peretz Ben Yehuda, and Leah Bat Naomi. And as we hold all of them in our hearts and in our minds, and as we think of those that were mentioned in the chat, we'll turn over to the cantor who will lead us in Mishaberach, which is found on page 371 again. Thank you, Cantor. It's beautiful as always. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So this week in the Torah, we're reading a double portion, and we're ending the fourth book of the Torah, the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers. And in some ways, we are also bringing to a close a rather tumultuous series of events in the Torah in which there has really been a lot of pain, a lot of challenge, and a lot of suffering. And we get to the second of the two parshas, right? This is a double portion, as I said, Matot Maseh. And so this second of these portions, Maseh, begins in a sort of strange fashion. So I want to just begin by just sharing screen so you can see what it is that I am looking at. And we can look at the text together for just a moment. So this is, again, how this part of the Torah begins. And it's sort of strange, which we'll understand a little bit more in a second. So after all of these sort of tales, all these stories, the Israelites are, again, at this point, organized. They are lacking in a few of their leaders. At this point, Aaron has passed away. Miriam has passed away. As I said, they've gone through plagues. They've gone through the earth literally swallowing up Korach and his rebellion. They've gone through a lot, and they are sort of on the precipice of the last stage of the journey. Depending on the chronology of the Torah that you most ascribe to, we're talking about really within the last year or so of the experience of wandering around in the desert. So here we are sort of at the end of the fourth book of the Torah and the precipice of all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden we get this very strange recounting. And not just a recounting, but really a lengthy recounting of basically everything that has happened up until this point. Okay, so all of a sudden the text tells us these were the marches of the Israelites, Ela Maseh v'nei Israel, who started out from the land of Egypt, troop by troop, in the charge of Moses and Aaron. Okay, so that part seems pretty straightforward. Now it starts to get a little bit trickier. Vayichtov Moshe et motzehem lemaasehem al pi Adonai ve'ela maasehem lemotzehem. So even if you don't know Hebrew, you may have noticed already that there is a repetition in this verse. Et motzehem lemaasehem ve'ela maasehem lemotzehem. Right? So why then do we have this repetition? Why is this happening? And also, why is it that Moshe, amongst everything else that is going on in the world, is deciding to write this down? Okay, remember, this is a wandering group of people in the desert. There probably are other things that maybe are more relevant than sitting down and writing the entire history of all of the previous 39 years of wandering. And yet, that's what's taking place. So we have to try to understand sort of what is going on here and why is this happening. And whenever we're stuck in the Torah, one of the first things we do is to try to go to one of the commentators, somebody who can help us to sort of understand what's going on. So I want to just share with you a little bit of a teaching from one of these great minds, who is usually just known as Sforno, S-F-O-R-N-O. His full name was Ovadia ben Yaakov Sforno, who was part of a rather prominent family living in Italy, if memory serves, towards the end of the 1400s, early 1500s. And he is one of the great classical commentators of that era. And he's sort of known for sticking close to what's called the Peshat meaning of the text, right? The simpler, straightforward meaning of the text. So as he's trying to contemplate, first of all, why did it make sense to write all this stuff down? Why now? And also, why did the text go out of its way to sort of talk about both the comings and the goings, right? He's fundamentally sort of, he's curious as to why it would be necessary to talk about each and every one of the comings and goings. And before I go any further, let me show you that he's not exaggerating in terms of each one of them. If we go a little bit further down in the text, you'll see each one of these circumstances, from the being freed from slavery all the way up until this point in time, we get verse after verse after verse after verse after verse, over and over and over and over again, mentioning every single place that the Israelites left and every place that they encamped. And interestingly enough, right, as it says here, Chatzerot, that encamped at Ritma, then it begins the next one, starting at Ritma and beginning to the next one. So if we're looking at the text from a simpler sort of straightforward standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be going into this level of detail, certainly not at this moment in time. So the rabbis, generally speaking, whenever they come across a piece of text that seems like it makes no sense, or that it's incongruous, or that it's repetitious, or that it's particularly long, that there is a logic behind it, that there is a reason why we're talking about in particular both the comings and the goings, the leavings, and ultimately speaking, the destination. So Sforno wrote in his commentary on this verse, he says that the reason that we find sometimes the objective is mentioned first and other times that the place of departure is mentioned first is due to the fact that sometimes the people were glad to get away from a certain place where unpleasantness had occurred, whereas other times they were merely glad to arrive at a new destination, hoping for a pleasant stay in their new encampment. He continues, one of the most vexing aspects of all these journeys was that the new objective had never been announced beforehand, so that the people were always in the dark about what the next day would bring. In spite of all these uncertainties, when they never refused to follow the cloud and break camp at a moment's notice when required. And therefore, the reason that both the breaking of camp and the making of camp are mentioned separately and mentioned repeatedly is because both are entailed and require a considerable amount of discomfort, of energy, and organization. So what is Sforno really talking about here, and why is it relevant to us? Why does it make sense to us? Right? Is that he's mentioning a few important pieces. Sometimes the destination is the most relevant piece. Sometimes the place that we leave from is the most relevant. A lot of times it has to do with how we're feeling about either the leaving or the coming, right? That when we are in a place in which we are comfortable, we are going to remember leaving that comfortable place. And when we are not in a comfortable place, we are going to look off into the distance to that destination where we are not yet. So, of course, I imagine most of you are at least smiling to yourself internally that I don't even have to belabor the point to say that we are in this stage in which most of us, all of us, I imagine, are waiting for whatever this is to end, right? We're already, you hear repeatedly, even in pop music at the moment, you will hear songs that basically say, we want 2020 to be over, right? That it is sort of this period of time in which we don't want to even think about it. All we want to do is focus on the end point, or all we are capable of doing is to focus on the before moments, right? When things were normal, when things were easier, if we believe that that's true, right? We struggle in the moments in between, just as our ancestors struggled the most in the moments in between. And so on the one hand, the book of Numbers could be a lot shorter if all Moses said was, right, the Israelites began at the shores of the Red Sea and they ended up at this place and this time. But it was important to talk about each of the steps along the way, each moment of breaking camp and making camp, and emphasizing them and putting, a focus on it, precisely so that we don't lose sight of the fact that the middle struggle was also important as well. That each of these individual steps along the way was also important. It wasn't just about the beginning or the ending. That there is a necessity to make sure that we are really being aware of all of the stages of our progress on our journey, wherever it may be. In an ideal world, we can do that in lots of different kinds of ways. Right now, we are actually still in the struggle. And I think that's partially because we are really living in two poles. We're living in the place in which we wish we could go back in time to wherever it was still pleasant, or at least, again, whatever we perceive to be pleasant, or we're so fixated on the future that we can't make decisions now. We have to realize that right now, as human beings, we have to be living firmly Bamidbar. We have to be okay with the idea that right now we are in something of a wilderness, but we also have to have the same kind of faith of our ancestors that while we may not have, right, gotten to the place we wanted to get to yet, while there may still be a distance to go, that we have to have an inner faith that we will get there and that we will ultimately get there together. And that if we become despondent or become too fixated on a world that doesn't exist anymore, it will be impossible to move forward. We will be paralyzed in our place. And so part of why, at least my drash on Sforno's drash, to say, why does Moses take this time right now at almost the end of the experience to go back over the entire history, much of which is actually littered with, let's say, hard, sometimes terrible experiences? Why is Moshe doing this? Because he is trying to remind this group of people who are about to enter actually what is the most challenging part of the experience, right? Entering the land of Israel, conquering the land of Israel, settling the land of Israel. These are things that require a certain amount of awareness of where everybody has come from. And it's certainly not to sugarcoat or to gild the lily to say that when hopefully the pandemic has reached its conclusion and we move forward, that we can look back on this experience and say, well, we learned a lot of important lessons. It's not that simple. But I think we would also be remiss if we didn't realize also that in this tumult, in this Bamidbar, in this wilderness that we are struggling through right now, is also some of the greatest opportunity for growth, both personally, communally, culturally, nationally, and really as part of a human race. So I invite all of us, as I said, certainly not to lose track of where we came from or where we hope we are ultimately going to get to, but also to be marking all of these sort of steps along the way, even the ones that are hard, even the ones that challenge us, even the ones that really in some ways break our hearts. We are not a people that runs away from our complicated history. We are a people that acknowledges it, ritualizes it, and we hope ultimately learns from it and grows from it. And I think that that is an important lesson for all of us to consider as we read this week's Torah portions and as we look to end the book of Numbers and begin the ending of the telling of the Torah in the book of Deuteronomy. So with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. I hope some of these words have made sense or have at least some positive impact on your Shabbat and of the week to come. So again, Shabbat Shalom to you. And we'll begin now to conclude our service by turning to page 586 at the very bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabeach. And again, personal choice if you choose to rise or stay seated. I promise I'm here, just off the screen just a little bit. Aleinu L'Shabeach Ladon HaKol Lateit Gedula Le'otzer Breshit Shelo asanu kegoye haratzot velo samanu kemishmechot adama Shelo sam chelkenu kahem vegor aleinu kechol hamonam Vanachnu koim umishtachavim umodim Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo Echad. Now invite those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit who feel comfortable to rise, please to do so. First, we remember those who have passed in recent months in our community. Nancy Fisher, Saul Fisher, Edwin Friedman, Sandra Friedman, Laura Kurtz, Maya Osofsky, Vera Schaps, Lisa Schneidman, Norma Small, and Marjorie Weinberg Berman. We also mark the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Nathan Bitterman, Hyman Block, Harry Bryant, Paul Buckman, Seymour Cohen, Benjamin Deinitz, Lydia Gossi, Lila Ehrenbard, Abraham Finkelstein, Joseph Goldberg, Walter Goldhill, Abraham Goodstone, Charlotte Gruen, Marion Hammer, Lester Cass, Richard Carl Katz, Tobias Haynes Meyer, Jeannie Morris Morris, Lynn Ostro, Henry Spitz, Bessie Weisberg, Bernard Zeiler, and Philip Zucker. And if there's anyone at home for whom you're saying Kaddish that we didn't mention and you'd like to mention their names either out loud at home or to add them to the chat, as we invite all of those in mourning to recite the mourner's Kaddish together with me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay, for those who are still standing, please be seated. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Again, kol hakavod to our wonderful new student cantor, Lauren, again doing an amazing job. We really appreciate it very much week in, week out. As you can see the applause, I hope. I'm just going to turn on my gallery view so I can see everybody. See, I wasn't making it up. It really was happening. It's great. So a few announcements, very important ones, and I'm going to begin by actually starting with next Shabbat. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Next Shabbat, we are very honored. We had planned for this months ago an in-person version of this, of which we hope we will be able to do in the future at some point. But we are honored to welcome the not so new anymore president of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, Dr. Andrew Rayfeld. And he's going to join us both as our guest darshan, our guest speaker, next Friday night as part of services. And he's going to join Cantor Lauren and I potentially as even leading some of those parts of the services. And then he's going to lead our Torah study on Saturday morning as well. He's really a wonderful, remarkable person, brilliant, and has a lot of really interesting things, I think, to talk about and to teach us at this moment in time. And as I said, we hope to be able to formally welcome him back in the future in person so that he can really get a chance to meet you and for us to meet him in person and to strengthen that connection that we have with HUC-JIR. But this is really a rare and wonderful opportunity, and he was extremely generous in being willing to still do this in an online format, even though we couldn't do it as we originally planned. So again, next Friday night, part of services beginning at 6 o'clock, and then Torah study beginning at noon on Saturday morning as well, and more information on that to come as well. So a few other announcements. First is going back to this Shabbat. Please join us for Shabbat services tomorrow at 10 o'clock. That will be live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, or on our website. Torah study with me beginning at 12 o'clock on Zoom. Also a reminder, Havdalah at 7 o'clock on Shabbat evenings, Motzei Shabbat, as we are leaving Shabbat, hoping to look towards the rest of the week. So you can join me again at 7 o'clock each Saturday night through the rest of the summer. Also following Havdalah this week, we have a really great presentation by one of our members. Mother students are less in the Hebrew school these days, actually one off to college. But we are welcoming Joyce Schulman, who's going to talk about her book, Walk Your Way to Better, 99 Walks That Will Change Your Life. And she'll talk a little bit about the book to take a Q&A. This, again, all of these things require a certain amount of pre-registration, so just check the website for how to join us. But again, that's 7:30 on Saturday night. Also, Sunday evening at 7 o'clock will be our Jewish Trivia Night, which we already have a lot of people signed up for. We're very excited about. This year's prizes will be donations to charities of choice by the winning teams. So we're excited to have you. If you haven't signed up yet, please do make sure that you sign up as soon as you can. So again, that's Sunday at 7 o'clock. We also on Monday at 12:30, our next lunchtime conversation with me. This time we'll be focusing on an Eli talk by Dr. Judith Rosenbaum of the Jewish Women's Archive on redefining a, quote, woman of consequence, Jewish women and communal memory. So again, we'll watch the Eli talk and then we'll discuss it together. Also a reminder that on Thursday evening, 7:30, we have a panel discussion in which we pulled together some members of our community, each in their respective fields, to focus on ideas of maintaining wellness, especially in a time of pandemic. So we are welcoming a number of, as I said, members and experts in their related fields. We're welcoming Ann Silver, who is a dietitian nutritionist, Dr. John Oppenheimer, who is an internist and geriatrician, Dr. Bradford Tepper, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and Ari Weller, who is the founder and lead trainer at Philosophit here in the on the East End. So please again join us for that 7:30 on on Wednesday evening. On Thursday evening, I know it's a packed week, people, but we got a lot going on, which is really great. Thursday at 7 o'clock, the Temple's Jewish Humor Group is going to be presenting a Jewish Joke Fest, including jokes from some of the members of the group and opportunities to tell tasteful, and I'm going to emphasize tasteful jokes. So if you have jokes of your own, please bring them. Just remember that God is watching, so please be thoughtful. So again, that's 7 o'clock on Thursday. Please do sign up ahead of time. And believe it or not, that is just this week. And I could go on to the following weeks and into August, but we would be here for a very long time. So all the more reason, pay attention to your e-blast, pay attention to the calendar on the website. Also, Myra's Musar class. Myra, maybe you can put details for Musar in the chat so people can see it. Anybody would like to sign up with Myra, she's accepting on at least a semi-rolling basis, which is a wonderful class. So again, thank you to everybody for being a part of our service tonight. Before we close with Kiddush, we'll turn it back over to the cantor who is going to lead us in a closing song. And then I said, we'll do Kiddush. So if you have wine and grape juice, now would be the time to get it ready. Sorry, unmute here. And before we turn to page 123 for Kiddush, just on a personal note, if she's watching, my little sister, not so little anymore, is her birthday today. So I wish you happy birthday, Nessa, if you're watching. And if not, I'll still wish you happy birthday. She's great. Most of the time, she's great. No, she's great. Okay, page 123, if you have wine, grape juice handy, please join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam morei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahavahu v'ratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki v'hanu v'acharta ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה ורצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. You can unmute yourselves now. Just a reminder also of our virtual Oneg Shabbat that happens after we're done here, but we'll certainly end up here. And Alan, I'll email you about Havdalah. I saw your chat. So Shabbat Shalom, Yasher Koch to the cantor.
Shalom, thank you. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Right.
Hey, everybody.
Beautiful, Lauren.
Lauren, you're still muted. Lauren, you're muted.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, and these people.
Lauren is still muted. Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
that's-
my computer is freezing.
Lauren, thank you very much for the beautiful.
Thank you.
Just wonderful, just wonderful.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Andrea.
Bye, guys. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Shabbat
Thank
Shalom,
you.
everybody.
It
If you
was
can, join us
lovely.
for the Oneg Shabbat.
Thank
Thank you.
Sister.
Happy
Everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.